And hello everyone, hello Instagram, hello YouTube, and hello world. Sasha is here in one another amazing night that we're gonna spend together. Wonderful questions that I already have from you. And I'm gonna also take a live question. So if there's anything you would love to know about dogs, but you didn't know whom to ask, I'm at your service. Today we also have questions submitted during our as invited to write us messages on Instagram, and also some of you from Facebook ads, you submitted your questions in our inbox. So I'm just gonna, without further ado, immediately jump on them and resolve the mystery. Okay, so the first one, I guess, was the one that we asked. We got in a follow-up about why it's important to pick up the bowl when the dogs are done eating. So, very important to understand is that evolution of the dog happened, and the dog remained a little wolf puppy. And as a wolf puppy, he needs humans to care about. So the humans are a replacement for the wolf parents, and that is why it's so important for us to understand that it is a dog parenting. Our task is to parent the dogs, but it's also important to understand, like, how do we do that? How do we become a perfect doggy parents? Is by parenting the dog as way they are. So we cannot project the human traits to a dogs. We need to understand the reality of the dogs as a creature. As they hold this mindset of the little wolf puppies, innocent little puppies that are, no matter how old the dogs are, they will always remain a little puppies. And in return, we need to learn how to communicate dog language, so the wolf puppy language. It remained the same through the decades and centuries. And in a little mind of the dogs, the food is a central point of unity in between humans and the dogs. And that moment of the ritual of feeding is a sacred moment of the day. And if we just leave the bowl there so the dog can come back and eat whenever they want, and pick as much as they want, the problem becomes because there is no communication involved in that ritual. So how do we communicate that perfectness of the human dog interaction? Is to turning feeding time into a ritual. How the ritual looks like? It's that first we provide the food. So if we provide the food, we're gonna just a second to get my. So we provide the food the way that we go buy the food in a packed shop, we cook something at home, we choose the way we're gonna feed our dogs, but we work something in order to make a food for dogs available for them. And then what happens? Then we prepare that food. No matter are we cooking or we are just pouring out from the bag, it's a ritual, it's a theater, it's a moment when the dog is looking at us like, oh my God, the mom and dad are providing. That's what we need to remain and be a providers of the food. And then, but you are not providing the food if the food is always available. If you are having your bowl down on all the time, and then the dog got completely confused, like, am I actually responsible for this food, or the daddy and mom gonna bring the food to me? So it's important that circle. The circle of the feeding ritual has the beginning, middle, and the end, like it will be in nature. So what happens in nature? The mother and the father go and hunt, and they bring it back home. They bring it back home, and they hunt it maybe like several miles away, like tens miles away. And then they made a kill. They kill the animal, the deer, whatever they find. And what happens there is that the dogs then ate whatever they could eat, and then they are, pacing back home in order to feed the puppies. How they don't bring anything in their mouth. They come home and they vomit the food that they just digested halfway through, and that what the puppies eat. So in the same way, we do it as well in the puppy's mind. What we do, we prepare the food, we put it in a bowl, and we put it down. That moment of bowing down, it's actually the motion of the parent, when the parent provides the food to a dog. And that is a crucial. You never leave the dog through entire day to have an access to the food, because then they are thinking about, oh my God, this is somehow going to become my responsibility. If the bowl is always down and I have all of this responsibility to fill it up, maybe the mother and the father wouldn't do that tomorrow. And then the puppies develop anxiety. So if you have a problem with your dog, for example, separation anxiety, pulling on the leash, barking, excessive urination, whatever, phobias of all kind, everything can be linked back to a food and feeding ritual, because it's not a ritual. We made a commodity out of that. Just put the food, have the dogs in my, okay, there is a wonderful, I feed my dog slowly from my hand using food pieces as a reward for short training sessions. That's also a very interesting way of using food. But here we are talking about a food as not as a reward, but as how you call that? As not as a reward, but as a meal. So that's very important. There is a distinctive line in between a meal and the reward. If we want to reward a positive behavior, so rewarding the positive behavior during the training session increases the positive memory that connects training with the brain cells and the brain responses to this action, then we consider that a reward. But when the meal time is a place, meal time is a sacred time of the day for the dogs, and they are looking for that moment as it's a culmination of their day. Aside from that's the meeting point for the humans and the dogs. It's a feeding time, and then the second time is a play time. So don't be sorry if you didn't take your dog to a walk like for 2-3 miles. Be sorry if you didn't play with your dog, because that's what the dog wants from us. It's social interaction, bringing in closeness together. That is what they would do in a pack. Playing with their siblings, playing with their parents, and always have the parents would oftentimes engage in that play. Sometimes they will not engage in the play. But it's very important to give the context to why the meal need to have a beginning, middle, and the end. The peak is when the dogs are eating and you need to move away. If the dog doesn't want to eat, for example, oftentimes we have a question also, I can answer it maybe now. My dog is a picky eater. He doesn't like what I serve him to do, and I need to hand feed my dog. So that's a very interesting thing to do, because what the dog does at that point, he's taking, I haven't cooked my dog at all. I train him to play specialized in positive interaction. That's amazing. Like Odvitin here, Otsutan 777, I am completely amazed with your approach. Everything you said, it sounds like you are spot on. Because the dog go to a walk as they would do something, so that's their job to perform. And oftentimes, because we are very busy by kind of because for the walk for the dog is a fully engaged process of looking for the food, protecting the territory, and how 2-year-old Rottweiler BH and VT exam, wonderful. And then we have, especially to Rottweiler, that's an amazing, because there where you get an engagement with the dog, you get engagement with the dog by playing. And that's the time where what they are looking for entire day, the most for. It's that moment. And for the feeding time. So the feeding time also, when the picky eaters, we have a question about a picky eater, the dog doesn't want to eat. You immediately need to know that that's the power challenge. It's not because the dog doesn't want to eat, but the dog doesn't trust that you are the provider. And then the dog tries to communicate that not because the dog wants to take a position over, but the position is left empty and free. And if the position is left empty and free, who? The provider, the caretaker and the leader. So the leading position is left free. Why? Because we don't communicate that language. We just randomly do things we are used to do, and we forget about actual life of the dog. So what to do with the picky eaters? Turn feeding time into a ritual. How to do that? First, prepare the meal. Choose something before you put down the bowl, like a piece of chocolate and things like that. And then put down the bowl without eye contact. Put the bowl and let the dog eat. If the dog doesn't eat, the moment the dog pulls away, from the bowl, the dog abandoned the bowl. And that's abandoned the food. And that's, again, the food is available to anyone else. It can be a sibling, another dog, or the humans. So what's responsible to be done? It's go close to a dog, take a bowl up, and the dog is not to eat until the next meal. And then the dog is taking a conscious choice about understanding that we are at the moment we are like now in the relationship of the parent and the doggy baby. The parent provides, the doggy baby follows. And understanding the doggy language, it's providing them the ritual through the feeding time. What's the ritual looks like? I prepare the food and I eat a bite. You won't eat the bite of the food, but eat the bite of the chocolate, especially when you have a picky eaters. It's called gesture eating. It's a ritual way of eating. So you eat your little piece of the chocolate, and then no eye contact with the dogs. What you do then, you just put down the bowl, move away from the bowl, let the dog eat, choose. Let the dog choose, and respect the choice of the dog. So if the dog chooses to eat, it's okay to eat. If the dog chooses not to eat, it's his choice, it's their choice. They made a choice, conscious choice. It was up to them to choose. And you should responsibly respect the choice of the dog. And if the dog refuses to eat and abandons the food is available to you, and you choose to pick it up until the next meal is done. And if you do this 2 times, you can do it in the morning in the afternoon, and you can do it next morning and next afternoon. You will see the dog will immediately. I never saw, my career was like 35 years long. I never saw if the family has a problem with the picky eaters. I never saw this problem being unsolved within 2 days. The people would always, oh my God, he's gonna die of hunger. He need to eat something. My dog is very small. The dog will never die of hunger. And there is always that 3-3-3 rule. We can survive, every animal and a mammal of this planet as well, up to 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks with no food. So the dogs would be the same. Hey, Sasha, by the way, have same name like you. Our name is name of male in our country, but female name at US. Well, that's what it goes. I never got a chance to, usually comes like a nickname of Alexander, but I don't. My parents named me Sasha, so probably to kind of not cope, not have that, how we go, we name him Alexander. That's usually how it goes. Alexander, but then we get Sasha, and I happen to be just like Sasha. That's very funny for you to say. Thank you so much for being engaged here with me tonight. And it's kind of like a female-ish, male-ish name, but yeah, when the Starbucks, when they ask me the name, they would always spell it properly. So I guess it's good. In Germany, they would add a C as well, right? Right? Okay. So what's next here is like never give this time to a picky eaters falling for the trap. It's a trap. It's a power challenge, and it's a trap. Not because they want to punish you for no reason, no, but because we didn't take our parenting role responsibly. So once we assign ourselves that we are doggy parents, then we don't need to fell in trap of our emotional life. Our emotions, it would be like, do you want to give your child a chocolate entire day? Do you want to give them the ice cream to eat just because they want? Do you want to fulfill all their wishes? Or you want to navigate their life so the choices they made would be beneficial for them? But in order for a child to be navigated through life, they need to be inspired. So actually choosing a food that's not a chocolate becomes their winning attitude problem. Winning attitude reward, right? So that's how we need to inspire dogs to make a conscious choice towards right actions. It's nothing to do. I worked entire my life, and that's where my career was the very successful one, because I never forced my dogs to do anything. Even when I would train the dogs, I would never use even rewards. I would never give my dog rewards, not because I didn't want to reward them, not the food as a reward, not because I didn't want to reward their good behavior, but because I didn't want to blackmail with the food. If you do this, I'll give you that. No, I did it with a different way of interaction, and I always try to make dogs, I show them how excited I am when they do right. And then they connected that, oh my God, I make him happy when I do this. And then my dogs made me happy by behaving properly and giving me whatever I wanted them to do by a conscious choice, not the blackmail. Neither force, neither reward. So I was somewhere in between. The most difficult way to deal with the dogs is to inspire them to choose consciously willing actions in order to behave properly, as we would call them. So that's why I don't fit in this environment of the obedience training and desensitization and things like that. We are not charging for some reason. Can you just deal with this because it's not charging? It's because of here. I'm sorry, just to fix this. So I never had my dogs. Yeah, now it's working. So now I never had my dogs do anything for me. Can you give some tips for resource guarding? Yes. Okay. So the resource guarding dogs, they are working for that. How can I say? What would they guard? They need to understand the resource. And the resource has a meaning to a pack, to a family, right? So intention of building the protected environment, what the dogs should understand as to be protected, it's come from us. So in the way for dog to understand the protective environment is always to feed them, for example, around the resource. Around the resource feeding, again, it's bringing the possibility. Now you are kind of bringing a food but not the reward. You are bringing the meal instead of reward. And connecting the meal as a meal time for inside the environment the dogs need to protect. And then if that's a place or a house or things like that, you're going to feed it one day here, second day there, things like here, there, and then this, not at the same place, for example. And then when you move away from those places, and then now not when the dog understands that those places are the in interest of the family, when they're left alone, they're going to protect it with their life. Just because. And also, like now we are talking, if we are talking about gardens, or if we are talking about fenced areas or something like that, including the how you call that, person guards and things like that. Because what we need to develop inside the dog's mind is not to be rewarded if they do something right, but to do something right because it's right to be done. And how do we do that? By inspiring dogs to follow our lead. And the guardian dogs, they are already in the established routine of doing that by genetically, because if you pick up the dog, especially if you work with the Rottweilers, if you pick the one that's an amazingly already set in genetic minds, it would be very, very easy to inspire. But it's also, you don't want to let the dog that's kind of high, because the food, he will growl on the other dog, approach his toys and his prey, high drive working animal. So again, it's very important that you have that dog. For example, if you start using rituals, what are the rituals? The rituals in a feeding time, the rituals in a walking time, the rituals in the uniting and departing time, and the rituals in playing time. Those 4 rituals will set you as a dog parent or a dog leader high in rank. Especially the dogs that are high working and hard drive working animals need a structure. And when the leader pulls aside, the dog protects whatever the leader... The dog protects that as a choice. And you will see that you don't need to reward that behavior, because that behavior is already within the genetic. You need to just take away everything that's preventing it to happen. And much easier, much better way is when the dogs choose to do that willingly. How many dogs you have? Like 1 or more. And then where it comes that the other dogs are approaching his toy, it means that he's already, whatever he thinks is he's going to protect that from the others, because that's what the puppies do in how you call that, in the nature as well. If you make yourself weak in his eyes, he will take a courage. If you make yourself strong and structured, he will protect you with his life. There you go. That's perfectly said. How you make yourself strong in your eyes? It's not because we are strong, because we are bully, or because we blackmail. We just be strong by a role. And the strong man by the role means provide the food, protect when it's time for that, make the joy of interacting together, and return and unite with those dogs properly. So how do we do that? We do the opening the doors and going in and out from the places, especially when you go out from the front door or the front yard door. You go out without any saying. So there is no pathetic goodbyes and things like that. Neither there are pathetic hellos when we come back. And it's always what I see oftentimes is these people are making some animals or some dog breed being like aggressive or more banned because of no reason or what reason. But the idea of a strong leader or strong parent, when you say like, if you make yourself weak in his eyes, he'll take a charge. That's for every single dog. It's for the Bull Terrier, it's for the Staffordshire Terrier, it's for Chihuahua, it's for Maltese, it's for Papillon, it's for any dog. Because any dog in his little mind, in their little mind, are the doggy babies. So wolf babies, wolf puppies. And the wolf puppies need leaders, need parents. Just the size of the dog make the dogs dangerous, and the weak leaders, weak parents, they are not consistent in communicating the rituals, are the ones that will lose the challenge and take a charge away from them. So immediately, when you put yourself in the position of being a leader to your dog, Rottweiler, let's say, the dog follows the lead, whatever the lead is. Commands and putting the dogs in charge for work, it's a training the dog can provide, and also the meal, the structure of the meal as a reward for the because that's what in a life in the nature everything is around. The meal becomes a reward for the good service. And if I'm in a pack and I have my role, my position, and then there was a kill, I'll get my portion for my good doings. I don't need an extra treats or rewards to perform things that are how can you say, that are asked from me. So that's where the interesting idea in communication and implementing this middle way of the strategy. It's not a pathetic way of all my babies and things like that. And it's not a bullying the dog by training them hard force and strength with the prong collars and things like that. It's in a middle way. And the middle way means strong, responsible ownership, leadership, parenthood. Call yourself as you want. You need to be strong. What means strong? Dedicated. What you allow once, you will allow forever. What you don't allow, none. And how to, for example, a good way for when the dog perform nice, always reward with the interaction with the dog. When the dog doesn't do properly and doesn't do good, you pull away and just ignore. So how do we get rid of the bad behavior? We ignore it. And we sometimes we perform the 5 timeout rule that just put the dog away. So the dog, it's not member of the group, of the pack, of the family, if he choose to behave this way. So that's a very wonderful, like, odmetniki odsutan svaka čast. Like, I'm really thrilled that you joined my live and inspired this way of moving off this direction. Thank you so much.
How to make and build real life recall.
How?
Recall.
How to make? Oh, how to make and build real life recall. So again, good question. Thank you so much. So what you do there is, again, we can do it with the meal time. With the meal time, when the dogs, now I'm kind of like driven to put rewards in this place, like reward the dog every single time when he comes. And the food-driven dogs can be rewarded by the food. But then again, if we are giving the reward to a dog, that's what I find very tricky and very tricky to do. And that's why I want to inspire something else rather than the food rewarding. Because when we feed the dog by the food, by the hands, and hand feed the dog because they perform something properly and something good for us, then it's considered hand feeding. And hand feeding can make us lose the leadership and position of the parent, proper parent, right? Because we don't hand feed the dogs. And now, how you take out the hand feeding and still reward the dog with the food for what he did good, without giving him, for example, food rewards from the hands. Drop it on the floor. It's not a good message. But then how? That's the point. So it's always to develop first to develop a good, strong relationship towards playing time. The playtime should be something that really excites you both. And when the dogs come to you, the playing ritual starts to happen. If we play, and then in that playtime, we tend to go left, right, do this, do that, and play with the dog, engage in them playing, then we can, because a lot of dogs, if carefully protected, if hand feed him, he will make him someone who will please him to feed, makes him just the king. Yes. And that's a trap that oftentimes we all fell in if we hand feed the dog, even with the treats. And that's the problem. The treats, I try always to, because it's not a simple answer. If you say, like, how do I recall my dog, where the all entire schools that we know, and I'm also developing this program, had it, recall the dog by when the dog comes, you give him a reward and a food. And that's how the dog gonna associate. When I come, I'll get the food. But you know, the Pavlov experiment also showed that everything that's connected to the physiological response of the organism, because the Pavlov said, that was a simple experiment for the physiology. He said, like, okay, I give a food and ring the bell, and I give a food and ring the bell. I give a food and ring a bell. Then he ring a bell and give a food. He ring a bell and give a food. He ring a bell. So the dog started salivating immediately when they saw technicians joining in and ringing the bell without bringing the food. And then that would start, and dog would salivate when hearing the ring until the certain time. And when then that curve has its downfall. And he said the stimuli that's inspired by the sound of the bell will slowly dissolve the salivation if the food is constantly not provided. And the conclusion of the Pavlov experiment was actual, because he said this is a great physiology discovery. But if we want to analyze the Pavlov experiment in the context of learning, that's why oftentimes learning with the food and the dogs dissolve itself, because we don't give a food anymore. We call the dog and dog come. We call the dog and dog come. We reward with the food. The dogs come. We reward with the food. The dogs come. The recall is established, and we stopped giving food. The recall stops. Or the dog don't want to go out. The dog doesn't want to come to you later on if you don't provide the food. So that is where we want, and why? Because of course, hand feeding also inspires and raises the level of the power challenge that aligns in between owner and the dog. And that's where we need to find another. So my way of approaching problem with the treats and the food as to be used to be blackmailing the dog, and on the other side building up the hype of the Pavlov experiment conclusion that no matter when and how long it's going to take, it's going to dissolve as a response, automatic response, if the treat is not presented on constant basis. So now what we need to do there is to turn our position into the playtime and establish the relationship within the playtime and establish a reward. Even if the dog is very, very, very much food driven, establish the reward as a good boy, or the emotional reward that count as, because only you is the source of reward. And if the dog wants to be rewarded by the good words, by the petting, or by something else that excites the good hormones within him, it's gonna need you, not food. And that interaction that happens then in between owner and dog is irreplaceable bond. Because if we turn, because I had over and over and over tried this experiment with my show dogs and the dogs that I had, the food, if taken as a reward and if taken as in a context of reward, and oftentimes the trainers around here want a reward, and I see them going outside, with the dogs, training them, giving them food, and telling, forget about meal at home, take a meal outside and hand feed your dog while he's doing, because make him hungry first. All of that is kind of blackmail, but also we know, and that's why all of those training classes fail down the road, because the trigger is removed. And when you remove the trigger, because you can't hand feed the dog outside the house all the time, you need to bring meals back to home. And then as you go out, the reward tends to dissolve, because we are not bringing food anymore. We think the dog is good on leash. But yes, what they didn't told you, for example, that oftentimes they're going to use a prong collars to add a choking to that action as well, or those electric collars that doesn't do much harm, but also what they do is they freeze the dog in time, because that's the way how the dogs are coping mechanism with the fear when exposed to the fear is freeze. Because the attack and run away is not an option for many dogs, like for the children, so they choose to freeze. And then those dogs that freezes, they're going to be a good behaved dog with the very, very, how can I say that, ruined physiology. Because the cortisol level is, I use a choke chain and slip chain, but not prong collar and never e-collar. Yeah. Try also. Choke collar can be also replaced because the choke collar is also a way of giving dog pressure when he overdoes things that cause very unpleasant pain on his trachea, right, that. And then they would remember what we have here is a memory. If I pull, it will choke me. So it's not good memory. Again, where to find that connection that we need in a feeding ritual, in a departing, reuniting ritual, and of course, the most one, in the playing ritual. When in the playtime, we become a source of dogs, a reward ourselves. And the dog doesn't do anything extra to that. So how to replace food because I don't know where are you from, but we are starting now very big. Our institute, Pure Love and Harmony Institute, it's starting a very big comprehensive study, and it's exactly we would need a study group and a control group for this scientific study. And the scientific studies should I will just to tell you these little things, so maybe you might participate in this study. It's kind of like beneficial very much for the future and for the dogs and us. When we do what is the aim of the study? To learn how behavior of the dog, and using all kind of tools like collars of all kind to send a signal to a dog can have an effect on their physiology. Because I found out that there is a wellness formula when it comes to the canine well-being. And if we miss any portion of that formula, the well-being is off, and possibility of some big physiological collapse to happen in older age of the dog's years, when they enter the last third of their life, like beyond over the time of 7, 8, 6, 70 or 80 already % of the dogs will develop some sort of cancer. The cancer is not a natural disease, and the more dogs are in tune with the people, in this level of not proper communication, nutrition, and coat care, they tend to develop these cancers. So on the other side, what I found very interesting, that the stress aligns on the foundation of that pyramid. So if we don't have a proper communication with the dogs, the level of the cortisol will be always high because they don't know how to interact with us. I talked about that in last live when I said, like, there is a way of, as a children towards parents, the dogs towards owners develop so-called emotional attachment. That emotional attachment can be positive or negative. The positive emotional attachment, and the dogs are completely safe, feel cared for, feel the behavior of the owner is predictable and constant when it comes to these 4 rituals: playtime, feeding time, walk time, and departing and reuniting time. Those 4 things. On the other side, when the behavior of the owner or the owners is unpredictable, the dog cannot rely on them, communication through the rituals is not persistent, and what it's allowed with the husband, it's not allowed with children or with the woman. So the dog actually doesn't have a secure attachment towards the dog. Then we call like insecure attachment or negative attachment, emotional attachment, and that leads to freezing state when we pull back, like, or actually we tend to like freeze within, close. It still can be a good behavior, but it's a dog zombie, slowly dies. Unseenly, you would see, oh my God, my dog is, but you will see he behaves but like a lion in a circus. He does it because he's afraid, or he doesn't trust, or that's the only way he can cope with the fear of unpredictability of their parents. Or the other side is anxiety, and then anxiety can lead to all sort of symptoms, like excessive barking, leash pulling, aggression of all kind, inappropriate elimination, the phobias or fears. All of that is symptom of anxiety. And the only way to get rid of that is to slowly develop a secured attachment, positive secured attachment towards owners. And now, how do we develop the positive secure attachment? Through rituals, communication rituals. So we use the language of the dogs in order to communicate. And why we call it ritual? Because we want to exaggerate everything. So nothing is left to be, how can I say, misinterpreted by the dogs, because the dogs doesn't listen what we talk. The dog look what we do. And we can talk one thing to the dog and we can do other things. The dog will always do what we do. As same as the children would always do what their parents do. The baby is just looking around, observing their mom and looking what's going on. And we look, our eyes that we have are developed by the eyes of our moms. The way our moms or whoever cared about while we were infants, the way those people were looking at the world, the same eyes towards the world we have. And we can change that during the life, but it's very, very difficult to do that because it's already programmed within our mind. So now to answer your question, how to properly play with the dog, it's always on your own term. So you play with the dog when you want to play with your dog. You play with your dog when you choose, and I suggest that to be every single day, at least 5 to 10 minutes. You don't need more, but try to find the different times for that, so the dog doesn't expect it, right? So it's predictable in a way that it's gonna happen, and you own that on yourself, but it's unpredictable because it's based on your free time. So if one day it can be morning, next day can be evening, some weekends can be in the middle of the day and things like that. And then how do we play? Usually when we make ourselves available to the play, then the dogs usually bring us the ball or something. So they challenge us. And we pick up the ball and we starting throwing the ball. Those dogs are they can be very toy driven, because they own the toy and they own us because they initiate the playtime. If you really want to see like how that's happening in the nature, I encourage you all to observe the play on YouTube. You can find nice videos of how the doggy moms, how the wolf parents and wolf play with the wolf puppies. The wolf puppies would try very hard to grab attention of their parents, but the parents would ignore. So when the dogs wants to play with you, the right thing to do is ignore it. And when they settle down, when they lay down, occasionally they're gonna let you have your own, go for it. Whatever you do, it's probably more important than playing with me. And they calm down, you give them 5 minutes rule. That rule starts when they lay down and you hear that exhale like, that's the moment when the dogs are thinking. And that's the moment when you can actually step up, take the ball, and initiate the play. Oftentimes happens that the dogs doesn't want to follow that lead because they just tried, they didn't succeed, and now when you want, they want to push back. But you should, in the beginning, you try. If it's not a ball, you try to pray, like giving and pulling or something like that. But it's for a playtime and a play ritual, it's important to be persistent, to happen on a daily basis, and to be initiated by you. It can happen like, so you're saying that we need always to initiate that interaction? Yes, so you always need to initiate that interaction. In that moment, you actually get your answer, how do you recall your dog in a free time? Because you become what the dogs need the most, and that's a social interaction. And wherever you go, inspiration goes. And whenever the dogs have a chance to get inspired by you, they follow the lead. That means recall as well, without being food driven. And oftentimes, when you said we're gonna train the dog to do this, and we're gonna give him food and reward, and we're gonna reward this and have them do that, what happens actually is that we help the dog awaken the genetic inherited traits. And if you don't work with food, how will you teach your dog to out the toy on command? Oh, sorry? Oh, to give it up. Okay, I didn't just. So if I don't teach my dog with the food, how you will teach the dog to out the toy on command? Yeah. So that's the only way. Again, you can use a positive words and the body interaction, so you become a reward. The word become a reward without the food in, because food is a slippery way. And sorry. Yeah, so you just actually out command, drop command. Out command, drop command. I'm sorry, my English is a... Oh, to give it up. Yeah. Okay, so I understand that. So the way how you do that actually would be very interesting way. You just turn around, move on, get out from the... So you say the word, leave it, and if he doesn't leave it, you stop playing. You move away. That's always the best ways. Ignoring the dog, and that would be immediately putting them in a position of thinking. Why did he move away? Oh, he moved away because I didn't let it go. Next time I'll let it go, so he'll play with me more. Try to become reward to your dog. That's the most important thing. And I said, like, now become creative during a playtime, because not every toy would be interesting. Some like squeaky toys, the other ones like these toys, that toys. But when they do something you disagree with, you just pull away from that. The best way to punish them is to ignore. The best way to reward them is to be a reward. Interaction is not that you blackmail them, but they just get a chance to have you a little more. Then you take yourself as a reward wherever you go. You have food, you don't have food. And then actually these things, like these ways of dog communications strategies are actually strategies that we need to be very mindful about. We can't type on a phone and be mindful. No, the dog needs us 100% present. And when we become a 100% present, we're going to be able to find a way to do it one step ahead. The humans need to be like, how do you say, if the man is the head of the house, that was a wonderful in that movie, the Greek Orthodox my Greek Orthodox fat wedding, where they said like the man is the head of the house, but the woman is the neck, turns the head wherever she wants, if made properly. And then what happens? We always need to be one step ahead of the dogs and think always the whole picture. Food connection to a dog, I'm not telling again, the entire meal can be used to put up the signals on the different places, so the dog gets a sense of what is all the guarding territory. And he will guard. If you are not present, he's gonna guard it. Why? Because this is a place where he used to get his food. Putting it one time in left corner, the other one next to the entrance, third time next to the inside the home, outside. I don't know what he need to learn to guard. But you are not teaching him to guard the food. You are showing him the steps of where the dog's territory is. Okay. So that's the one way. Because again, I was always thinking about, like, we need to teach people how to use the food as a reward, but not to lose their position by hand feeding a dog during the training, right? And the hand feeding, it's mean if you are giving to the dog from the hand, as you said, they end up being a king or the queen, whatever. And in order to avoid that, again, I bring back attention to, and how he said, Pure Love and Harmony said, like, you mean our attention ending with it becomes the motive. Yes, that's exactly the right way to put it. Thank you. So, and our intention to engage, you have a word that's command, and you tell him, because again, it's gonna dissolve. The more you get a chance not to put, if you do not keep rewarding that behavior, the learned behavior tends to dissolve and come back, and you will need much more time to get it where it went from. So it's very tricky using rewards in this sense. So instead of that, I would encourage you to play, to be creative, to find a word, and then when the word is said, like let it go, and if he doesn't let it go, you move away from the play. Wait for tomorrow, do it again, let it go, he doesn't let it go, you move away. The third time he let it go. The dogs are not stupid. They just need to understand the context. And what we oftentimes fail to do is to give the context to the words and to our actions. That's an amazing, because that's how the dogs teaches us to give the context to every single thing we do in our life. Give the context, being father, being mother, being this, being that, and enjoy the life in a way that life has a context and the content. And every single content is in context. That's what the dogs want. So I hope that at least a little bit answered your question and directed it to the right way. And I would really be loving to hear your experience on that. DM, yeah, leave. I teach my dog to let go the toy using food for trading. Never had a problem with drop command, even it's his best learned command. And you are not using food anymore. Is that correct? Just, yeah, you are not using food anymore. That was a question. Would you try enforcing some other words just to give it a try? Will he, if he try to replace, but why would you? If he's already doing it well, so why would you replace this just to try my point? But yeah, and of course the good recipe shouldn't be used. No, I don't use food anymore, and he drops 100%. So probably actually it might be that he's a food actually that you learn that with the food, but also I feel like you are a strong and good leader to him, and the food actually doesn't count at all to that. But I would give you kudos for being persistent and getting to the point where you wanted to do. But I saw, and I worked with my dogs, and I saw also a lot of people not having results using food because a lot of other things are missing in a context, right? So I just want to encourage you, if you don't mind, DM me and every one of you who would love to get this manual, because I can send you a doggy parent manual, and you can see all of these 4 rituals completely. Footage commands I teach him will listen 100% without food. I use food only for the building motivation and speed. So you are still using the food, and he's very much food motivated. And of course, you are doing everything else properly. What I would love to learn here, I would encourage you and invite you, and every one of you who would love to participate in this study, I'm going to send you the study, the abstract, and what we want to achieve here. So what is our searching looking for? So I assumed, okay, that a lot of dogs would develop some of the very aggressive diseases later in life. And that can be due to the exposure to a chronic stress, and the chronic stress comes from lack of human-dog interaction on the right way, called communication. So in particular this sense, with your rod, we can analyze how this collar chain and everything you did affected his physiology. And we can do that through the very interesting mineral analysis that comes from the tissue analysis that we're going to get from coat. So you'll encourage the entire study going to last around 160 days. And you're going to provide us with a coat sample on the beginning of the study and when the study ends on the end. And depend of will you be chosen, if you choose to participate, you will be assigned in two groups. One would be a study group, the other one would be the control group. The study group need to undergo the training program based on the rituals, incorporating rituals in the life of the dog. And then, you will have a tremendous support. Like it's value of that, everything that we're going to provide is around like 2.5K, so $2,500. You'll get an access to the Academy manual and the book that manual is created from. You get an access to the weekly managing, so support to get you. If you want to join these group calls as well, and all of that lasts 160 days. It's 4 months, right? And on the end, again, we see, is there any progress in dog's behavior? Did we achieve something with dog? And then we're going to take a test of the hair again. And if the dog calmed down during those 4 weeks, it's going to be visible in the hair sample because it's already part of the dog's body. Why we assume that this happens is because when the dog is presented to the environment that is considered stressful, the cortisol level is high. When the cortisol level is high, the entire immune system is shut off, including the thyroid gland. If the thyroid gland is hyper or hypoproductive, so it works much more or much less, the entire mineral disbalance happens within the body, where we actually have a lot of free minerals that are not able to build up the places where they need to be, and they end up being part of the tissues, like peripheral tissues, as the hair is. So we are looking for these triggers, and oftentimes what I find in my study, and it would be wonderful to see if you get a chance to help us observe your well-behaved dog, to see just behind the curtain what's going on in his body. And that's our aim to do with the study. It's not anymore my opinion that if we're going to use choke collar, if we're going to use... because as you described, I think that you are already in very motivation to your own dog. And the food is just taking away attention from real motivation of the dog. That is actually you as a food provider. And if anyone else with a less capacity to do it right or very precise would do the same, they wouldn't get the same result, because they are missing leadership skills and position on a lot of other places. Your dog looks like working dog, so he has his tasks to perform in order to make up for his lunch. And those dogs look the most happier ones until we do not dig a little deeper, because sometimes the choking collar on its own can cause dogs to shrink. What is my option on ear plucking? Okay, I'm gonna answer that 1 second. Thank you, Donna, for asking. I hope odmetnik 777 that you got something out from this, and I would love to see you in this study if you would love to. It's cost of you nothing, just a little time, and 2 times sending a sample of your dog's hair to our lab. And everyone else, we're gonna launch tomorrow, probably maybe Friday, the latest campaign. So you're gonna see this invitation for the study and what's undergo there. But it would be great to have some of these dogs inside the study. So I thank you so much first for engaging with me tonight, and you helped me a lot. I hope at least something what I said was beneficial to you as well, because you was very influential to me to check on my thoughts, to check on my movements and the doings, because it comes to be like very important part of the human-dog relationship when it comes to the mainstream knowledge about dogs, that what I talk, it's actually not so common knowledge. So let's go to the ear plucking, right? Plucking. Thank you so much for bringing up that question, because it is a controversial question within the grooming community. And I would always encourage you to do it if. So there is always, because the ear plucking itself, it's not a problem if we clean the ear canal properly and put some, put some healing powder or healing drops afterwards. But so it doesn't need to be medicated, just healing drops you need to put afterwards. So, because what's happened, if you plug the hair and we don't wash it properly, we don't sanitize it properly, and we don't prevent these possible infections to happen, it's going to happen for sure. Why? It's because when we plucked the hair out from the ear canal, we hurted the ear canal. At the places where the hair went out from the ear canal, there are the little bruises. Those bruises will be infected with bacteria that are actually inside the cerumen. Is that how it's called? Dirt that's in ear. Earwax, right? The bacteria that are in wax, that actually, if you wouldn't... Man, and I have Rottweiler, not Pomeranian or Maltese. Man, I have Rottweilers, not Pomeranian or Maltese. Rottweilers, the same. You have dogs. I'm not talking about a Pomeranian and Maltese. I'm answering the question to our YouTube channel question. So because from there, other things came. I'm sorry. I apologize if I didn't say that. So... this was a question of Donna from YouTube channel, because this live goes exactly at the same time to places. So thank you. So so if you want, I would always pluck, and I always did pluck, and I didn't stop plucking the coat because I always loved a clean ear channel, and it's much easier to be done in the settings of the groomer, because then you do it before washing your dog. And I was always pluck it out. Then when I put the dog to be washed, I'll put our shampoo inside. I'll wash it properly. It's going to foam properly. I would rinse everything out. When the dog is out, I would wipe the dog's ear channel with a cotton to make it dry. And then I will put a couple of drops of the some nourishing solutions, like some whatever drops you have handy, just to prevent irritation and infection from happening. And again, I know it's a very controversial thing, because oftentimes what the groomer does, they just plug the coat out and leave it as is. That's not how it should be done. Right? Okay, I think that's very important. Thank you, Donna, for putting it up, because I think it's very controversial to the industry. And more we try to do it, we are actually facing these problems. But the problem arises without us doing it the full setting. Pull it out, rinse it properly, clean it up, dry it up, and put a solution, the healing solution, couple of drops in both ears, and you will be fine. I never had ear infections in my 30 years of doing this to the dogs. Thank you so much. When we start talking about the Malteses and Pomeranians, why these dogs are devils, 90% reactive, aggressive with everything? It's exactly the way you explained. The people don't expect that such a strong leadership is needed to a Pomeranian, as you just described to Rottweilers. And that's why the people that are more tougher to the Rottweilers or those big breeds expect that leadership position to be taken. It's not expected to be given to a Pomeranian. But that's why I'm telling, the same language, the Pomeranian and the Rottweilers are communicating by using the same language. It's a canine language, and it's a mindset of the wolf baby. And if you want to really be a good parent to a Pomeranian and a Rottweiler and a Amstaff and to Bull Terrier and to Pit Bull Terrier, you need to be a leader or parent that's going to inspire and have positive attachment, positive emotional attachment to your dog. And then the dog trusts you no matter which breed is. And that's where the reactive Pomeranians and aggressivity of these dogs is coming, because of too much, how would you say it? Pathetic way and the baby talk to these guys. And unfortunately, the price they pay is high. And I don't need to say that actually, when I say like 60% of the dogs will develop some sort of cancer, 80% of those 60 dogs are exactly the little dogs. The dogs that didn't have a strength, they didn't have a strong emotional support by their parents, or I mean owners here. So how this emotional attachment occurs, that's very important to understand, because that's a brain work. Everything I'm talking about here and we touched tonight with is a brain talk. It's nothing to do with wants and wishes of the dogs. It's a brain talk, and it's happening in a triangle. And a triangle is prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and the hypothalamus. Those three things communicating between each other and looking for the next step. And the next step is based on the stimuli. How you say stimulus? Stimuli that arise from the outside world. And if something triggers, then this triangle knows the next step. And that's what, if we want to change the dog's behavior, we need to change the dog's brain first. So the physiology goes first and the behavior follows. Even though the impact of the behavior to a physiology is also a game changer to understand. Because if we understand how the behavior of the human-dog interaction impacts the dog physiology, impacts their brain, and the behavior becomes an outcome of that, then we know the reverse engineer how to get rid of that. And that's what's this study of ours that we want to perform. And I invite you, we would need around like 50, maybe a little more people. And that's for this way of study is humongous, very big task to accomplish, but I want to really dive in and tend to get to real more imperialistic, no, it's not imperialistic, kako se kaže to? Imperial data about what I'm talking about actually works in life. I want to, what was Pomeranian, if Pomeranian attack me, they will laugh. If my dog will attack me, yeah, that's exactly what you say. Pomeranian Maltese are breed for looks where nerves and genetics, working dogs breeding based on mental stability and workability. That's right. That would be right. Where actually in the latest days, we also see a lot of kind of like irresponsible breeding within the breeding community of the working dogs, because they don't, it was like a trend long time ago to breed according to the performance, like a breeding based on the mental stability, workability, and that would be the traits to be pulled together so the offspring would carry the better characteristic from both parents. But now it's not as much as responsible it was, because the dogs do not perform anymore as they did. So that's unfortunately, and then brings much more dogs with much more need of the strength of the owners. And if we would just be a little more conscious and aware about what the strength mean. The strength doesn't mean harder hand. The strength doesn't mean bullying. Neither Pomeranian, neither Rottweiler, neither Pit Bull Terrier, none of them should be bullied. And when I say bullied, I mean choked and all kinds of things that we do to them in order to provide a force. Because the force can be strong, predicted leadership. What is a strong predicted leadership? Is a leadership that the dog can rely on. When Donna, if we have here my grooming fellow people from all over the world that also probably were gonna catch up on this podcast, like we all have this now emerges epidemic of the something's going on with this. Is not charging, rather. Can we just get this straight to the? It's not charging. I'm sorry. Yeah, those breeders that I'm talking about are actually those Tanseri. Yeah, it's charging now. Stanzeri. But what I wanted to say, now we have all of this trend of the groomers. My fellow groomers would probably watch this live as well. And we have this epidemic of the dogs doesn't behave on the table. Anxiety, panic attacks, even seizures. A lot of people would say, oh my God, I get a seizure in my salon again. So, and then you have all of the tools that industry provides in order to keep those dogs calm. But they don't behave anxious because they want. They really are scared. Their brain is programmed to be scared. So it's for those dogs. I have a course that I prepare, like how to deal with dogs on a table, like a stressful dogs on the table. Don't groom them, because you can't. You know what can happen. I said to my students, don't groom dogs that perform high stress on the table because they can die on the table. If you keep taking those dogs as a client, it's not a matter will it happen. The question is when it's going to happen. So what we need first is to desensitize, how did you call this? To make them not reactive on other people or on the grooming procedure, regardless. But that's what's missing there is a human-dog responsibility and interaction in a proper way. So it's not yours to be blamed if the dog dies on your table because of the stress and then the cortisol and then the heart attacks that might occur. It's to be the only responsibility groomers has if this happens is because they choose to work with a dog that shouldn't be worked with. And we are getting, those dogs are bred like that, and those dogs are raised like that. And if we as an industry doesn't make a consensus on that with a stressful dog, what you can do, you can very easily become a leader to those dogs by force, or by strangling them, or by putting this, or by putting that, chaining them up and down all over the place. Is that willingly provided service to a dog? Did that dog willingly surrender to us to do it? No, it was by force. And if it's by force, then it's by hormonal reaction to that force. It's called fear-based. It's called, so how the dog coped with that fear? By freezing, being calm. It's not calm, it's frozen. And in that frozen state, the dog is still in the danger position, and the cortisol and adrenaline are spiking high. His blood sugar is high. Okay, and we didn't save it on Instagram. The spike cortisol is very high, and what's happened there is actually that the dogs try to put it. Maybe we're gonna save it. Just put it there to be charged, please. No, on the charger, regular charger in the, please. So what we do there, the cortisol spikes high, the blood sugar level is also high. The liver and the way now the sugar is stored is completely different than when normally, because the normally sugar would be used for the cell metabolism, and then it will be stored in a glycogen, I don't know how you say it in English. Then it will be stored in the fat cells and things like that. So there is a movement of how this motion of the insulin and the glucose reaction happens if there is not a cortisol spike in the body due to the stress. then it's completely different story. Then which organ is the most important in a stressed environment to be cared for is a brain. So what the brain actually functions the best of, makes the energy, glucose. So all the glucose spikes in the brain, what happens there? The blood pressure can go high, the heart can collapse. The best way to groom anxious dogs is not to groom them. I know it's a difficult hearing, but it's the right thing for the dog, for the parent, and for your business and for yourself. So I think this was a very exciting night. Thank you everyone who engaged here with me and asked very much questions, and wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Is there anything more from YouTube that I don't see yet? No questions? Donna, thank you so much for being such a cheerleader and such a big support to everything we do here. And I love you, and said a lot of hugs and the respect to everything. And I guess like this would be a great time to end. Wish you a wonderful night everywhere, wherever you are. And then on the other side, I invite you again to next Wednesday to another episode and podcast named Everything You Wanted to Know About Dogs, but You